Oh, we made it. Oh, sorry.
Now we're here. Bright and early.
Bright and early, 4 p.m. No, what is it, 3 p.m., something like that?
Yeah. There we go. So finally we can record. Finally
Funny, can record.
we're in the studio.
Say, Mikkel, what did we do in our secret trip?
We did something with a lot of Post-its.
We did something that is still secret.
Still secret, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great project. You can definitely look forward to
I think it is the greatest of projects.
No, yeah, it's going to be exciting. But maybe towards the end of this summer, we can actually start teasing a bit more about what it is, why it matters. That was a long teaser.
Yeah.
We're going to cut it down. So, now it's summer. This room is going to get really hot. But it also means more outside time with the kids. And my daughter, who is 2, she is at the age now where water is fun. And I was sitting on the terrace and I could hear the water running in the bathroom. And it's just, those 2-minute breaks you get as a parent where everything lines up. And I just knew I had to go out and check. Crawled into the sink, filled it with soap, and was taking a bath. Can you segue?
All by herself?
Yeah. I was a bit surprised.
But it's also one of those moments like, oh yeah, no, she could have died.
Yeah. Well, the sink
It's like, no,
is
but
pretty small.
no,
but
sometimes when you land, especially
yeah.
those kids and
Thanks
stuff.
for putting that fear in my life.
Yeah, but it's also this whole, if it's really calm and quiet for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
it's like alerts go off all over the place. Like, what's going on? Either dead or
Yeah.
about to die,
Yeah.
or something
Burning down
mysterious
the
is happening.
house.
Yeah, 100%.
Always the case. It's always the case. It's the
I guess
same.
it's like at work.
Yeah. When there are no tasks being pulled into the Scrum project board, then it's
No
like
calls being made.
something's not right. But it's funny you should say calls. We're going to talk about comp plans today. Highly relevant for those people who are making a bunch of calls.
Oh, well done.
Seamless.
Well done, Mikkel.
Seamless
Yeah.
segue. No, we're going to talk about things to put in your comp plan and things you definitely shouldn't put in there.
Yeah.
That's it today. We're going to focus on. And we recently did a go-to-market live about this.
Yes, with Herr Paulsen. Olafur Paulsen was also there. I mean, he's my co-host, or we're the co-host or something like that. And we had a good chat about it. And obviously kind of also prepping it a bit differently and packaging up for an episode here to talk about a bit more.
Yeah. And I think the cool part about that show is it's interactive. So there's a lot of Q&A, which is really the good part. And especially in this one, there were a bunch of questions. But one thing that really stood out to me that we're going to discuss today is how do you drive behavior with comp plans? That's really the focus.
Yep.
And you recently did a LinkedIn post about, things you shouldn't put in your comp plan, really the way to mess up your comp plan. And I thought, let's hop into this because there will be some of those pieces appearing in comp plans when they probably shouldn't.
Yep. So I think just as a preface to this, comp plans don't put too much hopes in them as well. They're really important. They're really expensive. But you should never see them as more than like 20% of the mixed bag of different motivations and incentives why someone is doing a good or not a good job. I think we have another episode on this actually from earlier last year actually. So we're really talking about the last 20%, right? And I think things that you should really try and keep out of your comp plan, and I've just seen it a couple of times. I myself was tempted sometimes to put them in, and it just always turned out poorly. There always was like, we shouldn't have done that. It's either you get smacked in the face during rollout.
Yeah. No, I'm not buying into this.
Yeah. And it's usually, when it's some underperforming rep, you can usually like, it's because he's bad. But if it's like 2 or 3 of the top 3 reps, it's like,
I'm bad.
This is not going to fly at all. But number 1, clawbacks.
Yeah, but it sounds so logical, clawbacks to have. Let's explain maybe what it is.
Yeah, so a clawback is I give you money and then I ungive you money because you did something originally that didn't turn out like it should be. So, for example, you sold a deal and then the deal actually fell through. So the customer never paid, or the customer was like, hey, this was missold, or any other reason why the deal falls through. So you as a company now can say, okay, we should punish that sales rep because that's apparently bad behavior, that, that someone is kind of selling bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the feeling that you as an organization get. And then you basically want to say, okay, I want to take that money, away from you again. So there are a couple of technical reasons why this is difficult. You need to basically withhold money now from the next paycheck.
Yeah.
You're also going to take out the last end of the scheme here, which is going to be the most expensive end. They will kind of feel that a lot, and they will compare that to maybe where they are right now. And right now they might be in the middle of a quarter and, be further down. And obviously, if you are clawing back on, for example, non-payment, which is a typical thing, by the way, the incentive that you're really going to then be pushing for is that your sales reps are going to calling down your customers to get money from them, which is, number one, not the best use of their time. And number two, maybe not the best way of engaging with your customers in the first place.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's this very motivational piece is that usually this clawback conversation, it's probably going to happen in some unopportune time in the middle of the quarter. And you really don't want to add any additional stressors around, is that rep going to be motivated or not, right?
Like, I know you're having a tough quarter, but let me just kick you in the gut real hard.
Yeah, or you can really smell the 100%. Well, let me set you back a little. And honestly, I've just never seen this work out really well. I think what you should be doing is, and I had this as well. Basically we had something like a T's and C's around it.
Yeah.
And basically almost make a fair use clause, kind of have it hover there, but super soft language. Like, the company can decide upon blah, blah, blah,
okay,
that blah, 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 right?
Yeah, because I was going to ask, so how do you prevent that behavior from becoming, gamesmanship?
Yes, and the answer is you fire those people. No, this is actually... So I think this is one of those, I think Netflix culture had kind of a really cool... So there was a culture deck from Netflix. They had a really cool thing around not wanting to create too many rules, and rather getting rid of people that violate kind of the code of conduct, if you will, instead of creating rules around everything. And we actually discussed this in Growblocks also once. It's like, hey, we don't need a rule that says don't piss on the floor.
No. Do it all the time, of course.
Yeah, so we don't need to have that rule written somewhere. That is clearly ingrained here.
Yeah.
Just as much as with salespeople, it should be clearly ingrained that you shouldn't be setting up fake deals.
Yeah.
So if someone is doing it, and to a degree on purpose, or gross negligence, or some in that direction, instead of creating a rule around that bad apple, you should rather get rid of the bad apple.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective on this. People can, fall on either side of this. And if this is your approach, then you know what? You don't need a clawback, penalty in your comp plan.
Yeah.
Next one, step functions. So a step function is what, if you imagine your payout scheme, and maybe sometimes that's a straight line, or it's a curve, or it's like a straight line with like accelerators in it. If you draw this out, so, on the y-axis, you might have completion to target, and on the x-axis, you might have completion to, OTE, so full target payout. And if you see steps in it where it kind of suddenly jumps, usually you have this, 49% here, and then 50% here up here.
Yeah.
That would be a step function. You do want to avoid those things. And the reason is it simply creates really awkward behavior around the, the just before and just after those step functions.
Yeah.
The easiest one is, I'm about to hit this step function. So my behavior now to close the next dollar is almost infinite, right? It's like I could have a $1 million deal pending, and it would probably even be better for me to discount it to $10,000 just to get over the step.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid that. The other thing is what I've seen, and this is no joke, this literally happened. Sales reps started trading deals.
No way. So they're like, if you give me that, I'll take them.
So that,
Yeah.
but it was basically someone was at 85 and the other one was at 75 or 73, and see there 75, there was a step. So then the guy with the 85 gave like a deal to the other guy. So they would, he would jump up, and then they split the, the step function, gain basically.
Smart.
Well, it's, so it is smart, and it's actually, that is behavior that you create. And I would just say, stay away from that stuff, try and make it smooth, try and kind of not have these things. Next one, capped comp. You never want that. So first of all, there's some physics around comp being capped anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to put a cap into your comp plan.
Yeah.
Usually people add a cap into it because, oh no, what if we need to pay too much commission, right? That's the reason.
Yeah.
And first of all, champagne problem.
Yeah. Totally.
Celebrate that.
Yeah.
And number two, for the overall on the capped comp, the reason why it's capped physically is the amount of deals that someone gets.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that they have in a day, the conversion rate, and so forth. It's like, they will have an extremely hard time to surpass that.
Yeah.
If they do, it's usually because of one big deal. And what we actually we put it into the T's and C's. We didn't cap anything, but we basically said if there's, one deal that's crazy, then we at least want to, wait with compensation for that deal until payment has been received.
Yeah.
To kind of mitigate the financial risk for the company, because it's like a significant outlier, right?
Yeah.
So we had it was literally, I think, a $750K deal, and usually we had like 20K deals, right? So it was a significant outlier.
Yeah.
And basically we're like, we're also in a position we could have paid that, but it was just to kind of balance it out a little bit, right? And otherwise, never cap that. And actually what I did was the opposite. Whenever I met a sales rep on, at the coffee machine or something like that, the one thing that I kept saying was like, hey, do you actually know how much money that guy made last quarter? And I didn't need to necessarily kind of say the exact number, because everyone knew what the target was for that person, and everyone knew what the number he hit because of the, thing.
Yeah.
I just literally helped them to calculate it through at the coffee machine. And there was a bit of a spring in the step when they walked back to their desk, in order to maybe kind of hit the same number. So never ever cap comp plans. It's going to kick you on the nuts. Cliffs, it's a little bit a similar concept, just the reverse. Basically, and I see this a lot with SDRs.
Yeah.
Is zero money until the 7th meeting.
Yeah.
Or for AEs, it's like zero money until you hit 50% or something like that. It creates quite a lot of demotivation. Don't get me wrong. I think the lower tiers should be paid lower, and it's usually always a combination between how much complication do you want to add, kind of, how many tiers and how much lower and how much then accelerates. But you should for sure, pay a little bit less for, the below 50, below 75, whatever you pick. But I wouldn't pay nothing.
Yeah. I think Olaf Way put it nicely. So we value the work, just not those 5 first deals. They're worth nothing.
No, exactly. And especially with SDRs, I had it because I had that brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Like, let's not pay them anything. And it's really, someone was then at 7 meetings or something like that. And then, it's so easy to create like this bad mood on the floor. It's like, yay, I got my first paid meeting today.
Yeah.
And that was like on the 20th, of the month. So, I wouldn't do it. It's not gonna help you, right?
So makes me wonder, what should we then put in a comp plan? Because we have a bunch of things now that don't do that.
Yeah.
Period. But we still want to have other things in there that helps drive the desired behavior, which is let's get some more deals.
Yes. That's really what comp plans should be about, right? So today we're actually not going to talk about the scheme and how you should kind of build out the scheme and all the math on how do you go from OTE to, OT to what the target is and so forth. Some of that was actually covered in the GTM Live, but today we're going to deep dive a little bit more on kickers. Yeah. And there are many different ways to say kickers. Accelerators. I think for the esports folks, it would be buffs. It's like no joke.
Yeah.
But what's really important is you actually want to do both. You want to do kickers and you want to do dings or negative kickers or debuffs, which is basically kind of the mix that we're talking about here today. I think one preface to that is also, hey, try and keep it simple.
Yeah.
I think the kickers, sometimes it's easier to keep simple or keep understandable because you can create a story around it. It's like when you do those things, you get that in return.
Yeah.
Versus if you land at 72.3%, then you get this plus this other thing, and the scheme is always difficult to calculate. With kickers, it's a little bit easier actually. And because there's some storytelling aspect to it, I also heard it way more often being then mentioned by sales reps. It's like, hey, if I do this, I actually unlock that kicker. Or if I, get to this thing, I actually have something else, blah, blah, blah. There's some storytelling around that actually also helped us in forecast meetings and so forth, right? And how to actually go about it, right? So I think what's really important before we're going into specific cool kickers that we have lined up here, so examples of that, is you need to figure out what is normal. What is a normal sales behavior for you, right? If you take some of the kickers that we lined out and you're an SMB company or an enterprise company, they might be completely, misleading and not helping at all, right? So before you discuss what positive and negative, positive tweaks you want to incentivize and negative tweaks you want to de-incentivize, you need to be very clear on what they're tweaking.
Yeah.
Right. What's the standard that they're helping to deviate from in a good or a bad direction, right? And again, these might be things like this is the average quota that someone can hit. This is the average quota that they can hit in a month versus a quarter, or in a year. This is the average deal size potentially if you want to do something around that. Those are the payment terms that are normal for us. This is the contract length that is normal for us. Yada, yada, yada. There might be so many other things that are really important to you. But contractually speaking, the ones that I just went through, they are usually the ones, right? Yeah. It's really the contract. So in my case, let's just say it like that, it's really the contract length. Yeah. So our standard was 12 months.
Yeah.
Like a year. And our standard was a year upfront payment.
Yeah.
Boom. Period. That was it. If then someone made it happen to go beyond the 12 month, we wanted to, appreciate that. If someone made it happen to get 2 years up front, we wanted to, show our appreciation for that. But equally so, if someone went below the 12 months, and this is kind of pretty important, we didn't want to forbid it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll kind of talk about the negative kickers actually first because I'm segueing into this. We didn't want to forbid it, but we wanted to align the interests of the seller with the interests of the company.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? If you are, let's just say you're RevOps and you're doing deal desking at the same time, which is, usually, what happens, or the CRO does that. Someone comes and asks you for an approval on a deal. Let's just say it's 6 months with 6 month payment terms, which is, really, bad in comparison to your standard.
Yeah.
And you don't have any governance around that, right? So the person closing a $20,000 deal would progress on his or her comp plan just as well, 6 months or 12 months, right? If you now sit there and you want to approve or disapprove the deal, you will always sit there and be like, yeah, okay, fuck, let's do it.
Let's get the money.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, 6 months is better than nothing. We can prove it. I believe in our product. Let's go.
Yeah.
What's now going to happen is that sales rep is going to keep doing it because it's basically a non-painful discount to give for him or her.
Yeah.
To whenever a customer or prospect says like, that's going to be difficult, then the first thing the salesperson might throw out is like, boom, let's just cut the deal in half.
Yeah.
Or let's cut the payment terms in half, or let's cut it down to monthly. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
And then you have it at the finish line. And then when you have it at the finish line, then you go to get the deal approval.
Yeah.
And it's usually this weirdo setup where it's like, well, I could probably close him for that. He mentioned this. And as a deal approver, you're kind of behind the, you can't really kind of change much here.
No.
Right? So what you want to do is you don't want to, what some people do is they completely say like, hey, you can't do it. But to be honest, that's just not a good practice because you want the money. You totally want the money.
Yeah.
And number two, some people then get smart and it's like, ooh, let's create a quota around it.
Yeah.
We can only have 5 of those deals a quarter and no more. And then guess what happens when the 6th one comes around? You're like, okay, yeah, let's not tell anyone.
Yeah.
But let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
And all of that spirals out of control most of the time.
Yeah.
So really simply align some of that stuff with you. Give them a little bit of a ding if they are doing something that's not great for the company.
Yeah.
I think it should be balanced out. So for example, for the 6-month contract term, we actually dinged 50%. So we dinged by quite a lot. But if someone gave half-yearly payment terms on a full-year contract, I think we only dinged 15% or something like that, right? Just to kind of to balance it out and to create a little bit of an incentive for that person to, go the right route and maneuver with the prospect in the right way to kind of, land where they should land. And what's really cool, if you design this kicker thing pretty well, you almost give a, reverse discount hierarchy to your sales rep.
Yeah.
They're basically, if you do it well, they're basically going to look at their comp plan and they're going to, okay, I'm going to start offering this kind of discount.
Yeah.
Could be on, I don't know, payment terms here. Then I'm going to move to, maybe the contract time.
Yeah.
The next one is going to be, 3 months.
Yeah. Then
Then it's going to be a one-off discount for the first year. And then it's going to be a perpetual discount into infinity.
Yeah.
Right. And basically, that is great. You want to set up something like that for your reps to be in full on sync with you, right? And yes, so I mentioned, for example, 3 month. This was kind of very uncommon when we invented it. We didn't invent it, but we came up with it. We asked some people, and we were like, "No, we're doing the same thing."
Yeah.
And basically, like, you have a 12-month contract, and people wanted to have maybe 20% discount, 25% discount. And then you say, you know what, I can't give you this discount, but I can give you the first 2 months for free.
Yeah.
That will not renew though, right? That was very clear. We sometimes call it an introduction, kind of while you're being set up, we're going to charge you. But that then obviously meant then next year when you renew, well, guess what? We're gonna charge you, right?
Yeah.
It took us a while before it made click because you want to set up a real nice structure around all of these things.
Yeah.
So not every time is kind of a weird conversation about it, and the sales rep has questions. It should just be kind of very clear to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it around the negative kickers. Positive kickers.
Yeah, let's get a bit positive.
I think we had lots of fun already. So on the positive stuff. So what many people are struggling with all the time is sales rep consistency. Now, adding those kickers is not going to fix that. It's only fixing 20% of that.
Yeah.
The 80% is, constant opportunity supply, low seasonality, good coaching, blah, 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 blah. That's the 80% of creating that consistency for the rep. But having some pieces that help the rep to drive urgency, or motivate them to drive urgency, is really helpful, right? Because if you're really thinking, so we did the following, not experiment. It turned out to be an interesting experiment. So when you think about it, you're a quarterly setup business, and see there, you're always closing a gargantuan amount in the last 2 weeks of the quarter.
Yeah.
Why is that? There's no actual reason for that. That is true in reality. It's all just the reps optimizing for the quarter end. It's like suddenly they come up with all kinds of reasons why this thing needs to close in the next 2 weeks, right? That's why you build it like this. If now you could say, well, maybe end of March, end of June, end of September. Those are just the purchasing month to me. This is where all the purchasing decisions are being made. Obviously, that's stupid. But let's just say that were to be true. So then, 1 year we shifted the fiscal year by 1 month.
Yeah.
And see there, suddenly January, April, November, and I'm mixing something up. The other month became the closing month, right? Suddenly that last month of the quarter, that was suddenly the big closing month.
Yeah.
So, if you realize that some of that delayedness, that backloadedness, has to do also with their sales reps. And I don't want to take away that, yes, you have enterprise level, sales cycles. They are annual, long, they conclude in the budget, and maybe they need to set up a new year's budget, and they will close in Q4. Don't get me wrong. Some of that stuff you can't fight, but why does it close in March versus April versus February? There's no real life reason for any of that stuff, right? So what you want to create with those positive kickers, basically an incentive for the sales rep to come up with urgency, fake urgency. That's how sales works, right? Fake urgency to get those deals done at that given point in time. And the first one that we basically kind of did, we did a intra-quarter pacing. So basically within the quarter, hit first month, second month, third month. So we basically gave a sizable kicker if you were pacing towards your quarter end goal in month 1 and in month 2 and so forth. So that's it.
Was it because there was too much risk of everything just closing in the last 2 weeks, or?
Yeah, it's also then, it becomes a physical problem suddenly if you kind of push the whole pipeline in front of you and then want to close everything in 2 weeks. And also, as more stuff is getting taken out, you have more time for CSMs to work through that. You want to kind of, remove those highs and throws, I guess. And that's why we wanted to kind of, create something like that. It also looked nicer on those dashboards, like a straight line, right? Then the next thing that we did is inter-quarter, so quarter over quarter consistency. And this was kind of trying to avoid sandbagging to a large degree. So we were fairly consistent with our target setting, so with the quotas, but we did always leave a little bit of residual risk. And and I couldn't say it, but the VP could say it. VP sales could say, it's like, well, you never know what the quotas are next month. To kind of create this, okay, I rather want to have this deal this quarter than next quarter, because if the quarters targets go up next quarter, this deal will be worth less. So rather want to close it now. So there was one incentive to not send back, and then the other one was basically to celebrate the people and incentivize the people that didn't send back. And give them an incentive then for the next quarter. So what we actually did, if you hit 100% or above, we gave you a payout kicker on everything you close next quarter. Yeah? Because if you think about sandbagging, it's basically trying to help your own next quarter. And we wanted to take that off the table by saying, well, if you get to the number, we will help you next quarter. Right? So that worked out pretty nicely, and a lot of people were referring to that a lot. Like, I know I still have the carryover.
Some tailwind.
Yes. So this was one, and this was the breakout, everyone loved it, success. We call it the fifth quarter.
Yeah.
And
usually that's a bad thing, though.
Usually, so I only heard it after the fact that some people use it for like, hey, this pipeline is for fifth Q.
Yeah.
But basically what we did is if you hit, and I'm not sure if it was 100% or 105% over the year, right? So this was really, annual pacing, annual target. If you hit the annual target, and that could be 0 first quarter, 0 second quarter, and then everything in Q4, for example, it would still unlock that thing. Then we will pay you a full fifth quarter.
Yeah. Pow.
Everyone got really jazzed up about that one.
I can imagine.
Like, this was like, yes, I want to have that. And it's that helped to drive a lot of, especially Q4 then, right? Helped to drive a lot in that direction. That also was a thing that we presented in every kickoff. So we had quarterly kickoffs.
Yeah.
That's maybe a bit obsessive, but that's what we did. And we basically kind of listed out who's still tracking too.
Yeah.
And people were like really excited about
like a scoreboard.
Yeah. Okay. And then we had one, and that's kind of, I think everyone should have that. The second you go above 100%, you should get double payout, basically on every additional deal that you close. And the rationale is, if you really think about this OTE example, where you basically have a 50-50 split, and once you get to target, you basically kind of reach that 50-50 equilibrium. And now what you can actually pay that person is double up because you are not paying on the base anymore.
Yeah.
And why would you do that? That's a way to save cost eventually. The reason why I would do this is you want to overly pamper all of your overachievers.
Yeah.
You want them never to leave. And basically kind of once they're in the double up zone, it's like really fun for them to close any other deal.
Yeah, no,
like honestly. I mean, we had people close a $24,000 deal, and just because of that deal and the continuation kicker and all of this other stuff, they got a payout of like 5 or 6K on that 24K deal.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's like nuts. But that's how that thing worked, and it worked really well, especially with our overperformers, right? Yeah, I think that's it.
So a bunch of positive and negative kickers. I mean, I can see why there were a lot of questions. Like, if you have a specific business, there's so many, if this, then how should we approach it, right? So I think, maybe if there's a listener right now that has a question and didn't have a chance to attend the GTM Live, number one, go sign up for that. You can do it at growblocks.com/GTM-live. You can sign up there. Or you could drop us a question on podcast@growblocks.com.
Or, DM me on LinkedIn. I think kind of to wrap this up, right? So a couple of things we talked about that you shouldn't be doing, a couple of kickers and why you would do it in the first place. I think in the end, you do need to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you ask a rep when he or she is drunk to explain the comp plan to you and he or she can't, then you did too much. What I learned is that more complex in the scheme, so how the payout works, confusing. The kickers, you can add quite some complexity without people losing track of that. So think about this maybe as a nicer way to play some of the carrots versus potentially in the scheme.
No, I think it makes sense. If you can't understand it, then how will it drive your behavior? That's like, what am I gonna do now? It's not, do you want gummy now or 2 tomorrow? That's not the
Oh wow. Okay.
That was the outro. That was the outro.
Font and colors.
No, I'm just tying it back to the intro. It was about, kids and then back to kids again.
Got it. No, well done. Seamless. Seamless.
Well, have a good one, kids.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Okay, thanks everyone.
No, that was
thanks, Mikkel.
Thank you, Tony. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.